This is the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast with Ferd. If you're looking to generate wealth and passive income in the lucrative world of mobile home parks, you're in the right place. You'll discover solutions to the common legal and operational pitfalls and how to optimize parks to maximize income. Your host is in the trenches. He's a real estate attorney, financial analyst, and mobile home park investor and operator. Now, let's turn it over to Ferd.
Welcome back, Mobile Home Park Nation. Ferd here again today with another episode of the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast. Got a special guest today, another Kansas City guy. He's owned mobile home parks, flipped mobile home parks, mobile homes. He's an apartment guy. He's a real estate hustler. He's got his own podcast coming out here soon. Please help me welcome my guest, Eric Lindsey. Eric, thanks for coming on, man.
All right. No problem, Ferd. Yeah, pleasure to be here and be talking with your listeners.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Well, tell us, I know you a little bit, but tell us more about your background, how you got into MHP, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so my background is similar to a lot of people that stumbled into mobile home parks. So somewhere around 4 to 5 years ago, I was going through some job instability. And so I work in the construction arena. I still have W-2 income to this very day. But I was kind of going through a lot of layoffs here and there. And it was around like 2008, 2009. And I was going through those layoffs. And as I was going through those layoffs, I ended up stumbling into a secure job. And it was actually my dream job. It was like, secure hours, secure benefits, the whole 9 yards. But as I stayed throughout the years, I ended up running to the corporate politic kind of things. And so the stable job and the dream job turned into a very turbulent job. And so it kind of forced me to start looking out to other income sources and just searching for some job security or some financial security more. That's predominantly what I was looking for, some more financial security. And so as I was educating, I stumbled across BiggerPockets. And I started learning about real estate. And of course, they throw so many niches at you to where I had to kind of cipher through the noise and figure out what I was going to pursue. And not too long after searching through BiggerPockets, I finally just made my mind up that I was going to start wholesaling. And so as I was going through the information and concentrating, locking in on wholesaling, I stumbled across a mobile home park podcast, and the operator, he mentioned that if a person could locate a deal and bring it to him, then he would pay a referral fee. And so I took the information, I ran with it. I jumped into the yellow pages. I jumped into like Google searches and MH Village and start calling parks. And I was able to locate an owner that wanted to sell his park. It was a 600 space park located in Council Bluffs, Iowa. And I brought it to the operator. The long story short, they was able to close on it. And so they syndicated the deal. They paid me a portion of the acquisition fee in the amount of $125,000. Nice. And so for 5 hours of work, I was able to make $125,000. So not too bad of a return on that. And that's kind of what landed me in the mobile home park arena.
Man, that's a good first start. If you could just do that once a day, you'd be rocking, man. Only 5 hour days, be chill.
There you go. Yeah, I'd run through those 44,000 mobile home parks within the nation pretty quick there, though.
Yeah, they don't all work that well. That's awesome, though.
Exactly.
So what are you seeing in today's marketplace? I mean, there's a lot of people who have drank the Kool-Aid and realized that mobile home parks are a great asset class, great investment. So it's in my opinion, it's harder today to find deals than it was yesterday. But what's your experience and what are you seeing in the marketplace?
Yeah, so coming in as a wholesaler and now an operator, because I've recently bought a mobile home park and I've kind of flipped it. I held it for like 12 months and just beat capital gains. And so just coming in now compared to where I was, 4 to 5 years ago when I first jumped into the space, is heavily saturated. So to say the least, there's a lot of operators jumping in and they're paying really high prices per pad. And it's making it really tough for the smaller operators to purchase property. So the environment is really tough at this point, but I mean, there's still deals to be done if you kind of operate it in the right fashion.
Got it. So tell us, how do you find that deal on Council Bluffs, or how do you find deals in general? What's your kind of secret sauce, if you will, if there is, and if you can share it, as to, finding deals? I think you mentioned wholesaling is a good way to get in the business. I think a lot of people want to do that because you don't have to have an operational team. You can still have a day job. You don't have to have credit. You don't have to have your own money. I mean, some of those things help, to get a deal tied up. You have credibility with the seller, or if you can put up the earnest money or do some of the due diligence. But it is kind of a nice, training wheel step to get into the ownership side. And some people don't want to get ownership side. Some people just want to wholesale, but a lot of people do the wholesales to generate cash to later be able to buy the deal.
Exactly. Yeah. So I look at wholesaling as, it's a great way to get OJT. So on the job training, you can learn the ropes. So you learn everything from negotiations to marketing to team building, networking, the whole 9 yards. So I think that makes you a better investor in a long haul. I would have preferred the less scenic route of taking so long to kind of get to your feet and realize that wholesaling is basically transactional, and it's really hard to build wealth when you're just churning and burning each deal like that. But yeah, so 5 years ago it was really I'm not going to say necessarily super easy, but it was just a lot less competition. So I was able to locate that first park there. It was 100% just handouting. And I did a lot of that while at work. In my free time at work, I would make phone calls. I would look in Google searches, just look up the telephone numbers of operators. And you can still get direct to a lot of the owners that way. And so it's kind of got a little bit more complicated since then. But as of now, we're just kind of combing through LLCs, using some CoStar information from time to time, using county assessor records, doing the Secretary of State, just regular typical vetting to get to the decision makers and making cold calls. And so full disclosure, 100% of the transactions that I've closed has come off of a cold call. So the mobile home park that I bought and sold, it was off of a cold call, and it was extremely random. So I'll share this. I'll try to keep this brief, but long story short, my wife was making the cold calls because she doesn't work. So she came home, take care of the kids. We've been able to keep her at home. And so she was making cold calls while I was at work, and she located a seller that had recently lost her son, recently lost her husband, and she had just hunkered away and secluded herself from the world. And she had been getting pounded and barraged with multiple cold calls, but just so happened she decided to answer our call. And so, the clue there is it's a numbers game with wholesaling. It's a numbers game with reaching out to sellers. You just gotta, it's volume. You have to take enough action to be able to get some kind of positive result. And so, that's the whole thing with wholesaling. It's all numbers game. When people are doing direct mail, they're throwing dollars amounts, and they're tracking their KPIs to make sure that they are able to be profitable, and that their marketing dollars are actually working instead of going into the negative. But yeah, so she was able to locate this lady, and we was able to get a killer deal. We basically bought it at a 10 cap when cap rates were really somewhere around 8%. The lady threw us out a price, and it was a phenomenal offer. And the good thing is, during that transaction, we was up against a lot of competition, and there was people that had been establishing relationships with her prior to that. But because I was ongoing, building that relationship, nurturing that lead. She was kind of almost taking me in as a son. And we was really looking forward to having conversations with one another. And it was an interesting transaction. So she didn't have the best of records, and I had to do a lot of trust. I actually didn't perform a phase one because it offended her. Yeah, so, and I had to kind of roll the dice on that, but I did a lot of homework, a lot of diligence, just to kind of make sure that it wasn't, a hot spot based off of the records around where the park was located. And the good thing it was right up against a high school. Her boundary line connected with the high school. So typically if they're building in the area, they probably done the phase one. So we was able to close on it, and we 5X'd our cash. So we closed.
No, that's great, man. Well, you hit a lot there. It's a good success story of, sourcing the deal, going through the county records, Google, however you got to find it, making the call, nurture the relationship, get the deal done, and then flip out of it and make a bunch of money. That's great.
Yeah.
You did tell me now, I know you also do mobile homes. How do you, and you've done apartment stuff too. How do you compare the process of wholesaling amongst those three asset classes, the homes, the parks, and the apartments? I mean, is it the same process? You're looking at them, same competition? What's that look like?
Yeah. So the competition level is just a little bit different, but the process remains the same. The name of the game with wholesaling, you have to have your preferred buyers list. You have to have your preferred buyers, just like a broker. So, of course, we know that brokers, they have their A-list buyers that they're going to kind of take the off-market deals to. And typically, the reason they're doing that is because, they're closing and their fee that they're going to capitalize on is hanging in the balance. If you don't close on that property, then that kind of hangs them out to dry. And the seller may take the listing away from that broker if you can't perform. And so it's the exact same thing with the wholesaler. We have our go-to people that we know will be able to close, and we'll deal with them. So they're going to be receiving our off-market deals most of the time. And it's the exact same thing with mobile homes. When you're wholesaling those, you can either do a handshake. Once you know a person, once you've completed a transaction, your trust level goes through the roof, just like any other transaction. I know you're able to perform. I've seen how you operate. And so our trust level, it has been established at that point. So a lot of times with the mobile homes, I just do handshakes with people, and they do a handshake with me. They know I'm going to perform, and I know they're going to perform. So as far as wholesaling mobile home parks, a lot of that, my actual mobile home park that I closed in the beginning, that was done off of NDA. And so we didn't have any contracts. NDA is okay. I know you're the expert at it, so you can talk a lot more about that. But I wasn't even aware of how to wholesale a mobile home park when I did that. So that one was a basic handshake in an NDA that we drew up. But yeah, the correct way of doing it is to draw up a contract, and that way that assures that everyone is going to perform according to the actual contract. So, but yeah, so it's pretty much the same. And as far as competition, mobile homes, so those Facebook ads that people are posting of selling their mobile homes, it is highly competitive, even locating mobile homes to infill your lots at this point, because a lot of operators, they're paying their managers to scour the internet for homes and things like that. But there's other ways to locate mobile homes. A really good strategy that works and that not a whole lot of people are doing, and I'll just kind of share with your listeners, is direct mail. And there is a great way to be able to source mobile homes through direct mail. You just have to physically drive the park, get the lot addresses, and run it through the U.S. Postal Service and make sure that it actually pops up. And once you verify that address, you're able to send them direct mail. And there's a lot of people that don't capitalize on that for infilling their homes. So, but yeah, apartment space is super red hot. It's trickling down to the mobile home park space. I'm starting to see mobile home parks being just as hot as apartments at this point.
Good stuff, Eric. Lots of insights. Yeah, on that last comment, I agree with you that I'm seeing cap rates on mobile home parks and premier markets, premier parks are sometimes as low as apartments. So it's really gotten competitive. A lot of private equity. I was at the MHI conference last week, and there's lots of big names, big players coming in the space with tons of money to spend. So it's just pushing prices down, even though interest rates seemingly are going up. So that's been interesting. Your comment about mobile homes being competitive. I think you're right that mobile homes on Facebook and other, they are going very fast. I mean, we had one the other day we tried to buy, saw the posting at 10 a.m., set an appointment for like 6 p.m. They called at 3 and said it already sold.
Yes.
I mean, first day, people are buying cash, people are buying a handshake. It's a little reckless at times. I think some people get stung with the title's not valid. The person that sold it doesn't really own it, some of that stuff, but I've seen a little bit of that. But I get it. Handshake deal. I mean, you mentioned, you closed a, mobile home transaction on an NDA and kind of a handshake. Yeah. I mean, best practice today would be, maybe get an NDA or a non-disclosure and non-circumvention agreement, and then have a wholesale agreement or wholesale contract whereby you get paid no later than closing, your earnest money gets replaced, all that kind of stuff. I have a question for you. When you're wholesaling a mobile home on a handshake, let's say John Smith owns the home. John's trying to sell for 10,000. Okay. You find John, you cut a deal for 10, you try to sell it to me for 12. Mm-hmm. Do you tie it up in writing with John? And or do you tell John that you're a wholesaler and you're like a broker and you're going to flip it to someone else to be determined? Or do you tell John you're going to buy it and close in 10 days and you just got to hurry up, and if you don't actually need it yourself, to hurry up and find me before you drop it? Like, what's the strategy there? Because I've seen a combination. I'm curious what your best practice is.
Yeah. So in that scenario, what we like to do is sometimes we do notify them that we're actually the middle person. And that kind of gets all the confusion out of the equation there. But in other times, what we do is we've already got a working relationship with a person like you, Ferd, and they basically trust us at this point because we've closed transactions with them before. And so they'll just wire the cash over, and we will then take the cash and actually close the deal for them. We'll leave the either the purchaser's name blank, or we'll fill it in for our buyer, and we'll just take possession. So and we've also done it to the point where we fill out purchase agreements in our name, and then we'll just transfer it over. And so, the mobile home industry, it's not so strict, similar to like real estate. And so you can kind of have a little bit more freedom in how you do things, and not necessarily be so by the letter of the contract within the mobile homes.
So I'm curious, when you say, so let's say I'm the buyer, the end buyer, you've got to convince me to wire you money for you to then go pay cash, my handshake to you, your handshake to them, me wiring you money. How does that go? And how does that go in the first one? Like, I'd imagine you come to a guy like me, I'd be like, you want me to just wire you the money? What if you run off with it? Right.
Right.
It's a big number. I'd wire you $20,000. That's a lot of trust. So how have you been able to convince people to go for that?
Yeah. So usually the people they've seen me around, they saw how I operate, and it's an initial trust process. And so once you've kind of established that relationship with the person, then, you do one, and exactly what you're getting after that. So I wouldn't recommend just doing that with any and everyone, because, not everyone's going to be a trustworthy person. But once you've kind of vetted a person and feel pretty comfortable with them, then I would say that it's pretty safe to do that. Something that we're doing now that kind of uncomplicates that scenario is we've been lately just purchasing them cash ourselves. So, I mean, with me selling my mobile home park, it's kind of increasing my cash, surplus there. So I'm just purchasing the mobile homes at this point, and I just take title. I'll leave the title blank sometime, and I'll just fill in the information. That's probably not good to tell the attorney here.
It's not me. It's not me to worry about. It's that dang DMV that wants their $13.
Exactly. Yeah.
That happens a lot.
Or I could even just fill it out and send it off and get a title to my name and then sell it to the end buyer. And so, it just makes things a lot less complicated. And another strategy that I'm using also is I'm using title companies. So don't trust me, trust the title company. So we'll do the purchase and sale agreement. We'll drop the purchase and sale agreement off at the title company, and they'll hold it like it's a regular transaction. And then the buyer can wire funds to the title company, and the title company will do the exchange there. So that eliminates that total need of having to trust someone. You would just trust the title company as any other kind of transaction.
That's interesting. I didn't know title companies were doing that because they're generally smaller numbers and they're not issuing a title policy. So they just charge you a fixed fee for playing escrow.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So what they do is they just charge me $300. So I've kind of negotiated with a couple of title companies and let them know exactly what I do, and they basically let me know, hey, for $300, I'll handle this. I'll basically do the exchange of title and the funds, and I'll make sure everything gets transferred. I'll mail off the title, the whole 9 yards, and everything's claimed.
Nice. Yeah, that seems like a safer bet than the wire some random guy money. But
yeah,
I'm just thinking of some of the wholesalers I've bought from. I'm like, I don't think I want to just wire you the money.
And I don't blame you. I don't blame you one bit.
That's great. All right, Eric, what other tips or tricks do you have to help people jumping in the space?
Yeah. So, I think sourcing deals yourself is going to be phenomenal. Actually getting your feet wet instead of trusting other people and just outsourcing everything. I'm a firm believer in learning it yourself before you start passing things on to other people. That way you kind of know exactly what you're looking for. You're able to kind of be able to track calls. Like, through my wholesaling experience, I've created a call center with callers. And so I was actually the caller at one point. So now I know exactly what to be looking for. I'm able to monitor their calls. I'm able to track KPIs, how many calls they've made, the whole 9 yards. But I think a great strategy is to actually get in and get your feet wet yourself. And then you can start outsourcing things so that you could be a lot more productive and know what kind of KPIs to be really attentive to.
That's great advice. I agree with that. In the operations side, especially, not just deal sourcing, but operations. It's like there's a lot of smart financial minds that are jumping into this asset class, coming from fancy business schools and fancy hedge funds. And I'm now in the trailer park business. It's like, yeah, but do you understand how to operate efficiently? And these guys don't. They're making mistakes. There's one big operator I know, they brought in like 75 houses at once, set them up. They bought all the same house, all the same color, put them all in the same time, set them up, got rid of old houses that were occupied, made the tenants leave.
Oh, wow.
So they had net newer product, but not net newer occupancy or better occupancy. And the state comes along and says, why didn't you guys use concrete? And they said, what do you mean? You don't need concrete. They said, well, you need HUD sets. They said, what's a HUD set? Well, it's regulated by HUD in the state of Illinois. If you have a new home, you need this much concrete, ground anchors, XI system, vapor barrier. And they look at them like, well, we just bought a park in the South and you just put the home on the dirt.
There you go.
Well, you just set 75 houses that all need to be removed from the lot, put back, which by the way caused a massive traffic jam on the park roads because it wasn't ready for that. All 75 came off at once. They had to then do HUD sets and then put the home back on. So they lost hundreds of thousands of dollars on just basic transport back and forth costs. And
Wow.
my point is, I guess there are lots of financial minds that come in and that looks good on paper, but they don't have the operational acumen to have gone through the permitting, the retailer license, the infill process, and then they don't have the experience, right? So if you can learn, if you can do it yourself, if you can do your own accounting, if you can do your own acquisitions, you can do your own due diligence, you can do your own management.
Mhm.
One day you won't have to do all those things, but you know how to, and you know how to better, as you say, look for KPIs, key performance indicators, look for where the bodies are buried and have better strategies. And I think, yeah, you got wisdom there on how you're approaching that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So that hands-on approach and kind of get your own hands dirty. Yeah. I think that's a great approach to be able to be a much better operator. But it, like you were saying, that experience is essential. And that's why it's good to partner up with operators like yourself that knows the ropes and have actually been in the trenches and can, lend that experience.
Great stuff. Anything else before we go, Eric? And if not, where can people find you?
Well, yeah. So I would like to share my podcast with you guys. It's more or less for working professionals, individuals that have W-2 income or either is looking to, jump into the syndication arena in mobile home parks, apartments. So I've got a podcast that serves the need to help out with that. And the name of the podcast is the Moonlight Real Estate Side Hustles and Syndication Show. You can find that on Apple, and also you can look me up on my website at ericlindsey.com. So that's ERICLIND as in David, SEYREI.com.
All right. Sounds good, Eric. Appreciate it, man.
Okay. Talk to you soon, Ferd.
All right. Bye now.
You've been listening to the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast with Ferd Neiman. Ready to learn more? Go to www.themobilehomelawyer.com for free resources and materials to help you succeed. If you love the podcast, go to Apple Podcasts, give us your review, and subscribe today. Thank you for listening. Neither the Supreme Court of Missouri nor the Missouri Bar reviews nor approves certifying organizations or specialist designations. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.